Hello. Good morning. Actually, hopefully it's morning to you. If not, good afternoon, good night, whenever you're watching this. I am recording this in the morning. Of course, I'm in the rocking chair in the nursery. Everest is sleeping. We have been here for possibly an hour. He's been sleeping. He didn't sleep at all yesterday until the end of the day. We had a women's prayer group in our community, and he slept with grandma in the evening, just in her arms until I came home, and then he went to sleep. But he was asleep with her too, like for the whole time I was gone, which was good. But I felt so bad because he was so upset because he didn't sleep almost all of yesterday. So hopefully he gets some better rest today. And if I just stay put, which it's so hard for me to stay put, um, you will help me stay put for a while, and hopefully he sleeps that entire time. So today we are going to be talking about different family traditions that I had growing up. Oh, I dropped the recorder. Sorry about that. I had to clear my throat, so I stopped the recording, but I am back. So today I want to talk about family traditions that I had growing up and throughout my life. Just all the things that my family did that were traditions, and I feel like a lot of the traditions that we had were very unique. Maybe some were unique and some were very common in families. Actually, I think they're unique to a degree. Yeah. So I wanted to share this with you, maybe to inspire you to have some of your own family traditions. Maybe you take some of the traditions we had and take them and, you know, customize them to fit your family and incorporate different things. I'd love to hear what your family had as traditions. You can definitely follow Goatee at Georgia D on Twitter, or DM me, Georgia Hertzberg _ on Instagram. You can leave a review, you can comment there, anything you'd like me to talk about. But let's just get into it. I'd love to hear your traditions. That's what I'm trying to say. But let's begin. So I'm going to start with our Christmas traditions. These kind of, when I say traditions, this is kind of what I really think about the most. I mean, my family has tons and tons and tons of traditions that we would do. Um, it probably stems from being Catholic our whole lives, but this these traditions, some are just fun, you'll see. So our Christmas traditions, every year we would go up to my grandma's. They live in North Dakota. We would drive up there and we would stay at my grandma's every year. And then on Christmas Eve, we would go over to my aunt and uncle's house next door, and we would bring food and a gift because we were going to play the gift exchange game. I'll explain that in a little bit because that's part of another tradition. I'll kind of go in order of how it all plays out. So we get to my aunt and uncle's house, and everybody's kind of greeting each other. People kind of filter in, and people are eating snacks mostly. The kids are playing down in the playroom, down in the basement, or they're up in the one of the living rooms. There's multiple living rooms, and people and kids are running around and talking and catching up and snacking, and that kind of goes on. And people continue to greet each other and say hi and get a drink, that so on and so forth. hanging out, just kind of getting reacquainted if they haven't seen each other since Thanksgiving. Um, so then at about 1 p.m., you basically, someone notices that Santa's here, and usually the bigger kids would dress up like Santa's elves. So what they would wear is like all green or all red and black shoes, like Doc Martens. And then they would have like one of those ski masks on with like those alien type sunglasses over their eyes. And then it covers their mouth and their nose. And then they wear like elf hats, and then they would come in with Santa, and Santa was usually a neighbor, friend that kind of knew. My aunt would kind of fill Santa in like all the different things that have happened that year, different little tidbits about different people in the family. And then Santa would come, and he would say hi. All the kids would get so excited, everybody would gather around in the room, and we would sing. We would just greet Santa, and we would sing a couple carols together, just different carols, but all of them were centered around the Lord. And then he would sometimes he would call out a name, one of the younger kids, and have them either sing the national anthem. He would always have someone like say a prayer, and then he would like someone get up on top of a chair and say the prayer, lead the prayer, and then he would have somebody else sing the national anthem. He would maybe have somebody lead us all in another song or a carol. He would try to embarrass people. One time, for example, he my one of my cousins, like everybody's a farmer, right? So, you know, one time, one of my cousins earlier in the spring had run over a bunny, and they came in all proud and they were like, "Yeah, everybody, I ran over the Easter bunny." Well, that year he only got black jelly beans, which was hilarious. So that Christmas, Santa called him out and said, we heard you ran over the Easter bunny, and it was a whole big deal down in the North Pole, and everybody was upset and this and that. It was just a funny big ordeal. Different stuff like that would happen, and he would just give that person a hard time, or um if somebody was dating someone, he would mess with them, those kind of things. And then the elves would go get all the presents. So, all the parents would have brought one present for everyone in their family, and then they would have given it to Santa ahead of time. Well, given it to my aunt and uncle, who would give it to Santa. And then he would bring in all the gifts in all the bags, and then he would hand out each gift, and everybody got one gift from Santa in person. And that was so much fun when Santa handed you the gift. That was so much fun. And so everybody would open it and show everybody. Oh, of course, I'm yawning during the podcast. And so that was fun. And then shortly right after that, Santa would pray with us before he would leave, and then he would go. Oh, everybody would, before he would leave and before he would pray, everybody would get a chance to sit on Santa's lap. So their entire family would gather around him, take a picture. And so my grandma had 8 kids, and then all of those 8 kids are married with kids, except one. And so every family individual of the 8 families would gather around Santa, and they would take their picture. Sometimes, like, some of the kids of my grandma's kids, so my cousins would want, because their families are getting big now too, so sometimes they would want just their family around Santa too, and that would take some time. So once Santa prayed with us and then left, we would all gather around in to one of the bigger living rooms of the house, and we would all, so everybody also brought another gift to exchange. Now, my mom gave me the secret long ago. She only probably gave it to me maybe when I was in high school or college. I think it was in college. And it goes like this. So, what happens, how you play the exchange game, I'm sure you played it. You have to, um, everybody brings a gift. Oh, so each person brings a gift. And my mom told me that you want to pick out a gift that you personally would like, because if everybody brings a gift in the family and there's like, I don't know, 75 people or 100 people, over 100 people, and if there's someone, that there's like that a gift that you don't like, if all those people bring a gift and there's a gift that you don't like, well, then you have at least one gift that you like and you can attempt to get that gift, okay? So everybody brings a gift and they're all wrapped and they say nobody's name on it. You put it in the middle and then everybody draws a number, and then you just go in order of what number, and each when it's your turn to get the number, you either pick a new gift, a gift that has not been wrapped, or you can go to another person that has a gift already unwrapped and you can steal that gift. Now, each gift can only be stolen 2 times until it's dead, and it has to stay with that person. So, basically, on the third time it's stolen, it's dead. It can be stolen 2 times, and then one, two. I don't know. It can only be stolen 2 times. I'm confusing myself, but yeah, it can only be stolen 2 times. So that goes on for maybe an hour to everybody going through the gifts and, playing that game. After that, people are, starting to wind down. I think most people eat before Santa gets there. So the food, people get there around noon, like backing up, people get there around noon. Santa comes at 1. So everybody's kind of eating from noon to 1. Santa comes, then we play that game, and then we are just kind of hanging out a little bit pretty much after that, and not much happens after that. People are just hanging out. We're usually going to be going to Mass as a family around 6, and at the latest, we'll go at midnight Mass. People go at different times, but usually the full family would go at 6. Well, my family liked to go at midnight. I mean, I just don't understand why my family would do that. It was just a tradition that we did, and we would go at midnight. It was just called midnight mass, and so the entire family would go and get dressed up, and it was just hard to stay awake because there was so much going on throughout the day, so much stimulation and so much food, and it was just so busy that when it was time for mass, I was just exhausted, and it was so hard because midnight mass was a 2-hour mass, and usually mass is only 1 hour. So going to midnight mass was like double as long. And then, so after mass would happen, we would come back to my grandma's, and a couple different, my dad, my aunt, and my grandma, everybody, they would have 3 different kinds of soups. My dad would always make split pea soup. My aunt would always make Nefla soup, which is a Dutch, Swedish, Dutch, or I think it's Dutch or Norwegian soup. It's so creamy and good, and dumplings and noodles. So, so good. And my dad would make a creamy split pea soup, and my grandma would make a chili, I believe. And so we would always have soup at 2 in the morning. Everybody would come over and we'd have 3 pots of big crock pots of soup, and then everybody would come over and we'd be talking and laughing and having drinks, and then we'd be probably playing a couple games of cards. There were some different cards that people wanted to play on the big table at my grandma's, and That would go on for maybe an hour or so, and then people would start to get tired. So then everybody would go back to their homes and then go to sleep. And then the next day, some people would want to go to mass in the morning, but then after mass, around 10 or so, everybody would then again come together again because a lot of people are out of town, and we would all get together at my grandma's house. And that was so much fun. So it was the next day, so people aren't as wild and all, excited. They're still excited to see each other because it's been a while, but it's not like as crazy wild. So they would come out to grandma's, and we would have the soup on again, and we would have probably turkey or ham, some type of turkey or ham like that. I think my grandma always had ham the next morning. And then yeah, I think there was always scalloped potatoes. Then I don't know, lots of different salads and dishes that people would bring, and then we would hang out at grandma's for the rest of the day. Everybody would bring their dog, and their dogs would be playing around in the snow, and people would go out and get their snowshoes on and snow boots and stuff and snow pants, and would go play out with the dogs. Everybody brought their guns that day, so we had like a little rubber ball that we would shoot like an AK-15 or just different shotguns or BB guns or handguns or 9 mils, and we would all go out shooting because again we're in North Dakota, so people don't live around for like 5 miles at a time, 5 to 10 miles. So it was awesome. So we just set up the rubber ball, and when you hit the ball, it jumps up in the air and then it goes straight back down. We also have done cans and different things, but it was so fun to just, we'd always be shooting in the morning. Sometimes my dad would hit a golf ball, and my uncle. I also forgot to mention the day before on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day, we would do this. Well, actually, back up one more thing I forgot. I remember as a kid on Christmas Eve, before Santa got there, right before Santa got there, um, we would put out reindeer food, and I would always get it from school. And what all reindeer food is glitter and oats, like oatmeal, like dried oatmeal and glitter. And we would throw it out all over the yard. It was glitter and oatmeal, and it was reindeer food. And so we would throw it out, and just so that the reindeer would come in, you know, and Santa would come. And then Santa would come shortly, and we're like, it worked, it worked. The reindeer and Santa came. It was fun. Um, but that, and so fast forwarding back to Christmas Day, we would do this on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. Um, I remember we would just get sleds, and my cousins would either have the four-wheeler or the snowmobile. They had both, and oftentimes it was a snowmobile, and they would hook up a couple sleds behind the snowmobiles, and we would all jump on the sleds, and our older cousins would pull us around and try to knock us off the sled. So there'd be like two or three of us on the sled at a time, and they would go in circles and whip us off, and you'd go flying into the snow, and it was so much fun. And we would just take turns riding, and that was fun. We'd do that on Christmas Day as well. Um, yeah, what else would we do on Christmas Day? I'm trying to think of any other things. Oh, my uncle would always want to take us flying. So he had his own, one of my uncles is a pilot. And so he had well, at the time when we were younger, he had like a 6-seater plane. But now he has about an 8-seater plane, and he would want to take us up flying. So I have videos growing up of us all like climbing into the plane, and he would take us up, and he would let us drive and fly the plane. It was so much fun. I just remember that being a blast. Um, of different things that we would want to do just on Christmas Day. Yeah. So we would hang out there pretty much and play games and eat food and talk and catch up. And then towards the end of the day, it would start to wind down, and then we would spend one more night, and then we'd go home after that from grandma's, and we'd go back to Minnesota. But so one thing that mom would do, well, that we would do when we got back to our parents' house, so we would have that would be Christmas with our extended family, and then we would have our own Christmas. So we would get back home, and it would usually be like 5 or 6 at night, or sometimes it would be noon or something. Usually it would be like in the evening, the next morning or the next day. And mom would jump out of the car, and we would keep driving around in the area. Like, we lived in more of a remote area, and she would, well, we all, after a while, we got older, we all knew what she was doing, but she was putting up the stockings, supposedly from Santa, and filling them with little stocking stuffers, and putting, more things under the tree, and doing any last touches that she needed to do for Santa. And so then we would come in, and we would all bring all of our stuff in from the weekend at Christmas with grandma's, and then um, we would have our own Christmas. And so when we were little, we would oftentimes, because things were sometimes closed if we went on Christmas Day home, but oftentimes we'd go the next day. We would usually either have pizza or Chinese food, is what we would always eat. Um, and we would usually make like a picnic on the floor. It was just, I don't know, something weird and fun about it. We would just have a picnic on the floor in the living room, because that's where you're gonna sit, right, to open up the gifts. So we ate there too. And I just remember having Chinese food the most. And we would order Chinese food, and then we'd all sit on the floor and we would eat Chinese food. And it was so much fun. It was such a treat because we never really ate out. Like, growing up, we never ate out, and we never really got um food that wasn't homemade. So besides McDonald's, like, we would drive to the cabin and we would get McDonald's, but like, really, we didn't eat out ever growing up, and that was just a really fun thing. So we would eat, and then we would the youngest one, whoever it was, at the time, but I mean, obviously it was Max, but sometimes I just remember Max always doing it usually, and putting the Santa hat on and handing out gifts. And then everybody would open up a gift one by one and say who it was from, that sort of thing. Kind of, a lot of people do that. And, um, oh, yes, and every time somebody would open up a gift, immediately, the family, if it was closed, everybody would yell, "Fashion show, fashion show, fashion show at lunch." And then that person would have to go try on the clothes, no matter what it was, and then come out into the living room and try it on and show us what it looked like and what they thought about it. And when they would come out with it on, everybody would say, "Ooh, you love it. It looks great on you. It's what you always wanted. You love it. It looks great on you. It's what you always wanted." And we would always say that, and everybody would be saying it at the same time, and it was so fun. And that's just how we opened gifts. So that was a really fun um, tradition around Christmas, surrounding Christmas, that we would do. Um, let's see. So moving on. Oh, New Year's traditions. I did not say this. So we have New Year's traditions that we always do. Um, let's see. After this, I'm gonna kind of backtrack on a few things from earlier holidays, but so New Year's traditions that we have. Um, every year at New Year's, my family, my immediate family has a New Year's Day party. So they'll kind of invite kind of my parents' community at church and some family members that live more towards the cities, like the cities of Minneapolis and area, and um, just some different aunts and uncles, that kind of thing, and aunts and uncles, some different cousins that were able to make it. Um, yeah, that kind of thing. And so we would invite them all over, and we would have, my dad would always cook black-eyed peas for the new year because they're supposed to be good luck for the new year. We would almost always make this cream cheese corn jalapeno dip. So good. It's basically that plus butter. Everything I just said plus butter. So, so good. It sounds kind of weird, but it's so good. Also, we would have like turkey, cranberries, kind of almost Thanksgiving type food, but not quite. Somebody would always bring a Robert Radford cake, or Better Than Sex cake, or Tres Leche cake we always had. Um, yeah, so we would eat and have some sparkling wine or some champagne or actual wine, that kind of thing. And we would always have a toast and we'd pray before the meal. We would, so after the meal, everybody kind of sits around and uh, we go through the previous year's New Year's resolutions, or like, no, New Year's predictions. So every year we make predictions as a family. So before we make the New Year's predictions of what we think is going to happen in the new year, we read the previous year's predictions. Now, we've been doing this since I think my sister, like, I think since she was about 4 years old now. She's in her 30s now. So early 30s, granted, but I think she just turned 30, so she'll be 31 this year. So, like, we've been doing this a really long time, and my mom has kept track of every single year's predictions. So this past year, when we had the New Year's Day party, I went back and looked at New Year's predictions from like 1996, and that's when my sister was like 4. So that was so much fun to see what she was predicting as a 4-year-old. And so being able to look back in the last even 4 years of what people were predicting, and that when we were going to get married and have kids, and every year they used to predict that I would meet my husband, and then I never would. But I think the last year they did, it was in 2019, and then I did get together with Caleb in 2020 or 2020. So that year they were correct. Even though I had met him as friends that entire year, but somebody had predicted that I would get married or meet my husband, I guess. So, we'll always read previous year's predictions, and then we'll make new predictions. Also, we'll usually like have horseback riding on New Year's Day, or we'll go shoot guns again. We like to shoot. We will, what else? We've had different games that we would do, or like, yeah, just different things like that. Um, that's pretty much it for New Year's Day. Yeah. So I'm gonna back up to Thanksgiving traditions that we would have. For Thanksgiving, we have several different things that we would do growing up. So a lot of my cousins and aunts and uncles would come in from out of town. So every year we would go to a hotel, and everybody would get a hotel room. And my grandma would come into town, we'd get a hotel room, and all the other cousins would, and then we'd go straight to the pool, and all the kids would be playing in the pool, sitting in the hot tub, running around. We would always get pizza that night and have pop and pizza and hang out with all the cousins. It was so exciting to see them because we hadn't usually seen them since the summertime at the lake. So it was always such a big deal to see them on Thanksgiving. We had been pining and pining away to see them since the cabin since the summer. So, because we had school, we had started school and had the first part of school half the year already, and it was just such a long time to see our cousins because we were such good friends from the lake. So, yeah, and then we would get there, go running and playing in the pool, and then we would eat pizza, and then the next day we would all go over to either my aunt. We would basically, as kids, we would always go to my one of my aunts that lived in the cities and Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and we would always go there, and that was so much fun. We would meet up there and then, um, start snacking on hors d'oeuvres, and all the moms were cooking in the kitchen, and the dads were getting drinks and bringing in the coolers and putting them in the back on the back deck, and some people were grilling and some people were cooking, and all the moms were cooking, and the kids were running around and greeting each other and talking and playing. And then we would eat, and then afterwards we would, I guess this is kind of a regular tradition of, I'm pretty sure this is kind of regular besides the hotel and the pool and different things, but then we'd watch football, and everybody would, I think we'd have like different bets of what the final score would be. All the dads and all the cousins were like putting in pools and bets and of what the final score was going to be of whoever was playing and betting who was going to win. And we would be have games being everybody would be playing games. Oh yeah, so downstairs everybody would be napping or watching football. It was mostly guys downstairs. A lot of the women and some men would be upstairs. Almost all the kids would be upstairs. The kids would be going back and forth between the two, up and down the stairs, running around, and then a lot of the kids would be up in the upstairs as well, in all the rooms and stuff. But then a lot of the women and some men would want to be playing. So we would always have these big games going. I remember one Thanksgiving we played, what is that? It's that murder game. Oh, I'm totally blanking on it. Um, it's where you wink and then you murder people. I am so blanking on the name of this game, but you all know what I'm talking about, where there's one murderer and then there's like a doctor and you have to try to guess who the murderer is, and the doctor and the detective, that kind of thing. So we would play that game and it was so funny. And so one time, like, my aunt said she knew who the person was, and she was trying to give hints, but you're not supposed to do that. And she said, "Mark my words, you'll be sorry," or something like that, and put her finger way up in the air. And then she was she was trying to tell us who it was, but she's not supposed to. And she kept saying who it was, and she wasn't supposed to anyways, because she had seen, and you're supposed to have your eyes closed. I don't know. It was just so funny. So from now on, we always just say, "Mark my words," and she's always just a little sheepish about it, and it's so cute and funny, and everybody knows it. And because there were just so many people over playing that game, we played lots of different games like fishbowl and like charades, and oh, we would always have a skit. So oftentimes the kids would put together a skit, a Thanksgiving skit, with the turkey and different animals and different things. And the kids would all dress up and act it out. That would happen every year. There was always a skit and a play. Um, Oftentimes my mom was directing it and getting everybody together and dressing up and stuff, and that was so much fun. And then my dad and my uncle would put together a skit as well. They would kind of do like a talk show, and there were like it was like a stand-up comedian act, a stand-up comedy act. And they'd be talking back and forth about different news things or just funny different little bits that they put together themselves. It was really, really fun, and we always looked forward to that. Yeah, those are, I think, the majority of the traditions for Thanksgiving that we would do, and people would start to trickle out as the evening went on. We were almost always the last people to stay, you know, for the night or for the afternoon. So, that's fun. Anywho, let's see if I'm so growing up, I think we did go out to Black Friday. Actually, not as kids. When I got older, we did. But I only did it a few years, and then a bus hit my car and did like a hit and run, and I could never find it. It was a city bus in Minneapolis, and I could never find it. So after that day, I never went out on Black Friday ever again. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to skip to, so these are like a lot of holiday traditions, but I'm gonna do one more holiday tradition, I think, and then I am going to do some other traditions, talk about some other traditions, so if I have enough time. So the next set of traditions we would do would be Easter. We had Easter traditions, so um we would always go over to my aunt that lived in northern Minnesota. We would always go to her house often, or my other aunts that lived in North Dakota. So I guess they traded off and on. And we would go there, kind of the normal thing. Um, Family gets together, there'd be drinks, there'd be people gathering, kind of getting acquainted after not seeing each other since Christmas or New Year's, if people didn't come out for New Year's, and then uh, some oftentimes my aunt would play one of my aunts that's super wild. She would play a trick on us and come dressed up as the Easter bunny, and she would just hang around for like an hour as a life-size bunny, like a pink bunny, and she would mess with you and come and like pull your hair or pull your clothes or pinch your bum or like hand out candy to you or just be a stinker or like come up and bug you while you're just there or come do a dance with you or she would dance and sit and like stare at you, just being goofy and try to interact with you, but she would never say a word. She wouldn't talk, but she would know you and try to interact with you, but she wouldn't say a word as the bunny, but she was dressed up in a full life-size Easter bunny costume. And that was so much fun. I just remember that being so much fun. That was just, I think she only did that like a couple times. She didn't do that every year. So, yeah, and we would all get together and eat. We would either have mass, I think we often had mass before we got together, and Easter mass is about 3 hours long, I want to say. It's like the longest mass in the whole world. And I don't want to say it was 4 hours, but it was at least 3 hours. Yeah, so it was at least 3 hours. And then we would go over to one of my aunts in northern Minnesota, like I said, and we would eat ham, like all the nummiest, like such nummy food. My family was so creative in the food that they would make, very creative. And we would have eat the food, and then we would have like an Easter egg hunt, very typical Easter, and festivities. And then we would play cards and play games. And when we were younger, We would bring our Easter candy over wherever we were gonna be. We would bring it with, and then we would play poker for Easter candy as kids. I remember being like one of the youngest ones growing up. I was towards the end of like the young. I'm towards the youngest of the kids and of the kid cousins, and I remember kicking all my older cousins' butts when it came to poker. Like I kicked their butt. I only remember doing it one time where I like beat everybody, but I was like betting for Cadbury eggs and stuff. Like I was like the peeps and the Cadburys, man. Like I was going high ball, like high roller, you know? So it was really, really fun. I just remember that being a fond memory growing up, like at Easter, and we would stay late into the day. And then after we would get done eating, we would often, everybody would bring like a change of clothes for walking, and we would all go for like a couple-mile walk after we ate. Everybody wanted to still stay fit, and so we went for a walk. We also would go for walks on Thanksgiving after we ate. Oftentimes, that was something we did as well. Um, we never went on Christmas because it's snowing out, but we always would go on Easter and Thanksgiving. We often would go for a walk. Everybody would want to get, their stuff on and come out. And when we were really young, we would go swimming at the lake. Even though it'd be freezing cold, we would go swimming. We'd bring our swimsuits, and yeah, we would jump in the water and swim around and hang out. And then, yeah. So, what else? Another tradition. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah. Another tradition we did was every summer. So, I grew up in the city as in my childhood, and even after we left the city, we moved out to the country just like an hour outside the city. So it's kind of like suburb area. But my cousins lived in North Dakota, where it's like miles and miles and miles between people, and you're 30 minutes from any small, tiny town and an hour from any big town, you know? So, like, they're like country, like, this is real country, like, where they live. And so, in North Dakota, and like farmland. So every year, my mom wanted us, my parents wanted us to have an experience that she and they had growing up on the farm, growing up in the country, because we were kind of city folk. So when we were kids, every summer, once we were old enough, I don't know how old we had to be, like 8 or something, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And we would get to go spend a week at grandma's. And that was so much fun, spending a whole week at grandma's, and we loved it so much. And so there were lots of things that we would get to do out at grandma's that we never got to do back home in the city. So we often would help my uncles and my cousins, all, with painting and doing like stuff around the farm. We would put things together, fix things, climb up silos, um, be with the horses. We would go to the grain bins and help there. We would go to different country events like turkey raffles, meat raffles. And if you're from the city and you have no idea what I'm talking about, a meat raffle is basically where people will go to like a municipal area, like municipal court, or like the city hall, or the VFW, and which all these things are like places that are in country towns. And the VFW is like a veterans place where veterans hang out. Yeah, I believe. And so people will go there, and they have a bunch of meat for sale. They have sometimes guns and I don't know, hats, lots of random t-shirts and stuff. And so it's a way that they raise money. So um they will you buy tickets or whatever, and then they raffle it off, all the stuff that they have. And they have usually a ton of stuff. But I would always give my cousins a hard time. I'm like, what are you doing this Friday night? A meat raffle? Like, as if like that's all there is to do in town, because it's kind of true when you live there. Like, that's really, what it is. And so one time I called my cousin, like when we were older, like in the last year or something, and I was like, what are you doing this Friday night? A meat raffle? He's like, actually, I am. But he wasn't bothered by it at all, because literally that is what he went to go do, because he's like, it's a way that people get together and they haven't seen each other in a little bit. So, you know, it's a way that the community comes together and they see each other and this and that. So, um, yeah, we would go to meat raffles, and um, yeah, we would get to drive. Like, my grandma let us drive cars when we were very young. I think I started driving a car on my own when I was 8, but I think I was starting to drive a car when I was like 6, 7, that kind of thing. But when I was 8 was when I was driving the car myself, and I would drive grandma to church. We would drive to church, and I would drive these kind of just close things, or driving to someone's house, another aunt and uncle's house, a couple miles away, on the back country roads, where everything's straight. So, what else did we do on the farm? It was just fond memories. Grandma would, we would eat we would have lots of chocolate milk. We never had chocolate milk at my parents' house. So chocolate milk was such a treat. And I remember us chugging milk, and grandma's like, no, no, no. Like, because she wanted us to drink all the chocolate milk. So she would have us mix white and chocolate, so that we wouldn't drink all the chocolate milk right away. She's like, yo, you guys are piranhas. She didn't say y'all, but she said, you guys are piranhas. Because we would come in from working out on the farm and be starving. And we would drive four-wheelers around and just play and go to parties with my cousin, go when we got older. I don't know. We did lots of fun stuff like that. I think I was gonna transition to another memory, like crossover, but I kind of forgot what it was, a different tradition that we had. Um, so another tradition we had was we would go to the lake. This is kind of something that my whole family did. It was just the culture of, northern states is kind of go to the lake, you go north and go to the lake. And so that was the culture of my family. And so I grew up with my being around my grandma and my cousins every summer. Every weekend we'd be out at the lake, and we'd call each other and say, hey, you gonna be at the lake? Are you gonna be at the lake? That was just something we always did. And we would spend a week out at the lake, 2 weekends, and a whole week at the lake. And but then we spent almost every weekend out at the lake growing up. And um we learned how to water ski, all the cousins, everybody. It was just what we did. We all learned how to water ski very young. Like, I started water skiing at 5. um and I think that was kind of old to start learning how to water ski. I think a lot of other kids started learning like 3 and 4. So I'm hoping we can teach Everest how to water ski at 3 and 4. That would be so fun to see him water skiing and wakeboarding, so little. And yeah, so I remember learning how to water ski, and my uncle would be in the water and my dad was driving, and we spent a whole day, and I would fall and I would fall and I would fall, and I just wouldn't give up. I just wouldn't give up. That's a whole nother memory that my dad taught me. But um so then they switched. My uncle started driving and my dad got out in the water, And I got up immediately, and we left my dad in the water, and he had to swim all the way back to the cabin. I think I'm gonna leave it there for today. I have so many more traditions to share with you. Maybe I'll just do a part 2 later on and leave it at this as a part 1. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope that you just think about different traditions in your family and how special they are and how unique they are to your family, and make your family special and unique. And it doesn't have to be like with your parents, or you don't have to have kids to have traditions. It could be just you and your spouse, or it could be you if you're single with your family, or whatever the case may be. But I hope you enjoyed, and you can leave a review wherever you're listening. That would be awesome. Or follow wherever you're listening to podcasts. You can follow Goatee with Georgia D. You can write a review. I would love that. Or follow Goatee with Georgia D on Twitter to be and partake in the episodes. You can share the episode with friends. Also, you can comment at Georgia Hertzberg _ on Instagram and message me any topics you'd like me to talk about. And I just want to thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.